All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call this meeting to order. Can I get a motion, please, that the agenda for the February 18th, 2020 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Wilkinson will make that motion. Any questions? Councillor Chouinard, you don't have the floor. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that the minutes of the January 21st, 2020 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councillor Chouinard will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. No public hearings or delegations tonight. We're going to move on to item F, reading of bylaws. Can I get a motion, please? The council give first reading to bylaw number 2242 to amend land use bylaw number 2070 by redesignating 5.6 hectares of part of the southeast quarter of section 18, township 53, range 17, rest of the 5th meridian as shown on the sketch map from urban reserve district to business commercial light industrial district, and set the public hearing for Tuesday, March 17th, 2020 at the regularly scheduled council meeting for the town of Edson. Thank you, Councillor Bevan. And
I missed that. Could you say that?
I missed halfway through. Can I get you to repeat that, please?
No. It's, we have our planning department. Take it away.
Good evening, council. Thank you for getting through all the legalese on that. This is first reading for bylaw 2242, rezoning or redesignation. It is in the West Edson area structure plan area, and there's a map there for context. The proposed area is about 5.6 hectares. It's currently urban reserve, and the proposal is to go to business, commercial, light industrial, which does align with the West Edson area structure plan that's currently in place. That's a area structure plan that we have with Yellowhead County. The district proposed is generally intended to provide for a mix of highway-oriented business, commercial, and light industrial uses located within the Highway 16 corridor area. The district is directed by the intent of the area pursuant to the Town of Edson, Yellowhead County Intermunicipal Development Plan and the Edson West and Branch Corner area structure plans. So again, for context, this is the Edson West area structure plan. The star is where the subject lands are. The recommendation is that council give first reading to bylaw 2242 to amend land use bylaw 2070 by redesignating 5.6 hectares of that subject land from urban reserve to business, commercial, light industrial C3A, and set a public hearing for Tuesday, March 17th, 2020 at the regular council meeting.
All right. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to administration, just want clarification that we're basically just speeding up the rezoning of this as per the West area structure plan. So it would have been done in the future. We're just doing it a little earlier now.
Yeah, there was an application made on that property that the fees have been paid, the application's in, so we're bringing that forward at this point.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Bevan.
Through the chair. Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I know we've always wanted to kind of develop it out there in the past, so I think this is a good start. And if anybody who wants to come and develop, they'll see, what's going to be put out there and what's going to be built out there. Maybe we'll have some more offers come in, some other parcels that can kind of develop this in the future. So I think it's a good deal. I like it.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. You got another one for us. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve the notice of decision as per the attached? Who would like to make that motion? Councillor Byer can make that motion. Ms. Resick with us now.
When you
Go ahead. Yeah, you're on.
Good evening, council. This presentation is going to walk you through the recommendation from Planning Administration for a fascia and wall sign in the direct control district located just down the street from us at 5014 6th Avenue. So the proposed development for the signage is located in the direct control district, which as you can see on the map, these are the areas in red that currently are zoned for direct control, which you only have the ability to make decision on for any development. The property, as I said, is located down the street, and they're proposing a fascia sign on the front yard and a wall sign on the side yard of the building. And this is what it will look like. It's for H&R Block, as you can see on the pictures here of the building. And that's one fascia sign and one wall sign. So this is in line with our municipal development plan for future land supply, as the MDP outlines a future commercial area in line with the commercial ARP. So it is recommended that Town Council approve a notice of decision that you've seen in your attachment for development permit number 004-2020 for the fascia and wall sign.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to administration, I just think this points out the strong need to revise our land use bylaws, that we need to be approving the sign on an individual business's building in town. This seems extremely onerous for them to go through, and I have my full support.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Bevan.
Yeah, I like, the sign here. I think if we do revise it, I think we've got to be careful that we don't revise it so that they can put up freestanding signs someplace like they did 2 blocks down here where they never did get approval. The sign went in, it never did, and it still doesn't have approval, and they put it up and it was a lighted freestanding sign and that. So I think, something like this in the building really doesn't hamper anything, but if they're gonna put up a sign for a business and that's gonna be on a highway or whatever, and that, I think we still gotta look at approving that and be very careful about what we will let go.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, I just have a comment. I'm happy to see that the building's going to be used and well signed.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Florzone and Ms. Resick. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve the amended snow and ice control policy OT-3 as presented, and cancel policies OT-5 and OT-16 and OT-3 procedure? Councillor Byer will make that motion. And we have Mr. Verhage with us. I think we've batted this around a couple times at committee, but do you have anything new you'd like to add, or just questions?
Mr. Chairman, members of council, the only thing I'll add is that we did make changes as requested, and we've clarified that when we were speaking to previously emergency weather events, we now changed that to extraordinary weather events. Also, I'll note that we have clarified as requested by council that the CIO would still be considered being able to allow for $50,000 to be dealt with, but only within the calendar year, setting a cap for that amount, which is usually near the end of the calendar year, is also whenever we usually have the budgetary related issues. So with those changes, we'll note that otherwise the policy reflects on the materials that you've previously seen, and we're available for questions.
All right, Councillor Chouinard.
Okay, actually here I'm pleased that we added in the Evergreen Foundation apartments. Unless I can't find it, what is your policy on the town buildings? So meaning like the library, the Repsol Place, and the medical center. Is that in there somewhere?
Go ahead, Mr. Verhage.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, the high traffic areas are typically where the town related facilities are addressed.
Okay, so they're covered in there?
Yep.
Perfect.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, just to repeat that, Evergreen Foundation, I'll speak on their behalf, and we're very appreciative of that. Thank you. So will the seniors be that the bus can get to them.
All right, any other questions, comments, or concerns? I'd just like to add that I think that we did a lot of good work around this policy to bring it up to where we are today. It was a fairly old procedure that administration was dealing with before, and I think we've tried to encapsulate some of the comments and some of the issues that have been raised in the community over the last few years. And I think that it continues to be a work in progress. But I've just had the unfortunate pleasure of spending some time in Edmonton, and I'm very happy with the snow removal here in our communities. So thank you very much. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve an additional $3,000 in funding for the Edson Cultural Heritage Organization for a total of $18,000 annually starting in 2020. Councillor Sorensen will make that motion. And we have Mr. Guy Latour, our General Manager of Community and Protective Services, with us, who's here to present.
Through the chair to council, the request for a decision is in front of you, and I'm open for any questions. Pretty straightforward.
All right, Councillor Schnard.
Yes, I see this in front of us. There's been other groups that have been asking for increases due to whatever reason. I'm not against giving them, I understand the importance, but how are we handling the other groups that are asking for requests?
Through the chair to Councillor Chenard, you have anybody in particular?
Well, what I'm looking at is we have the other ones through FCS, you know, which is due to the Alberta government cutback, so this is two different things, but I'm just looking at, there's a request that's indirectly town, so I'm just wondering how we're handling the other ones.
Through the chair to all of council, so the FCS grants are very different. We do have multiple grants that I would call operational core grants, and we're looking at hopefully budgeting in the next year's process something that will address ongoing cost or CPI for each year moving forward. So our intention would be in the next budget cycle to bring something forward to council that we review that every year, and if we want to increase those. Lions Park, Muskeg Flyers, Victim Services, Citizens on Patrol, Animal Rescue would be kind of ones that fall within that core funding area. The rest are specific to programs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
thank you. If I may add to that, in addition to what Mr. Latour has shared, council will recall that in this year's budget, they also improved an inflationary consideration for both the library and for the Historical Society, who in a similar fashion had been operating for quite some time without asking for an increase in their budget. And so, as Mr. Latour suggested, it is our intent to be more proactive in including that in future years so we don't end up falling behind over a number of years.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Byer?
Through the chair to administration, as with some of the other FCSS grants, Tanya had mentioned that they provide feedback on the services and how that grant has been allocated with the user groups. Is this treated that way as well?
Through the chair to Councillor Byer, currently it is not. We have identified multiple challenges and issues with our funding policies and grants, and we are currently working at bringing something to council that would clean everything up and be a better structure that would define what type of grant it is or what kind of funding it is and what would be the specific requirements for that. We've identified that as a huge area of importance that we need to address, and we're actually working on it right now.
All right, Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, I really am glad that you're going to address this. I think even the groups want to know, is it sustainable, so this really will help if we can just decide where we're going. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? My only question is, they requested $1,000 increase each of the 3 years, but we are automatically going to start at $3,000. Is there some rationale behind that?
We thought it was a reasonable request
Okay.
through the chair to the council.
Well, I would have to concur with that. I was expecting when they did the presentation to have a 0 at the end of their funding request, because that's what we're kind of used to. So I have no issue with that, and hopefully it'll allow them to deal with any maintenance or any other issues a little bit more easily over the next couple of years. So I'm in full support. If there's no other questions or comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council authorize administration to proceed with the installation of 3 pedestrian crossing lights in the amount of $60,000 to be funded from the Public Safety Initiative Reserve at the following locations: 48th Street and Edson Drive, 16th Avenue and Edson Drive, and 3rd Avenue and 56th Street. Councillor Bevan will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? We do have Mr. Schramm, our Director of Protective Services, if you want to maybe just go through the presentation.
Yeah, back in the January 14th Committee of the Whole meeting, we did do a presentation on the pedestrian crosswalk lights for the committee to review at that meeting. So, one of the sites that's on this list, specifically 16th Avenue Drive, was identified from the committee. We did do an evaluation on that site and kind of ranked it as all the other sites we had, and it did kind of meet the criteria to be one of the primary ones we want to get done. A lot of students traveling out of that whole Tiffin area across on that trail crossing, and there's a crosswalk at that location already. So really what we're looking for is those 3 sites to be approved this year, and then from there, on a yearly basis, we can evaluate the need for other sites accordingly.
All right. Councillor Chenard, then Councillor Wilkinson.
I'm actually pleased, maybe the province will take a hint, these are lights for safety, so I'm 100% in favor of this.
All right, Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, when you made the decisions, did you ever ask like law enforcement if these are high accident areas?
Mr. Schramm?
Yeah, to the chair. When we did the evaluation, we do have pedestrian collisions throughout our community, and being a part of the Protective Services Division, we attend a lot of those.
Okay.
Now, these specific locations, we haven't had any pedestrian hits, I should knock on wood, because, but we do find high pedestrian traffic there. We have high traffic volumes, and we do that evaluation with our speed advisor signs that we've installed on Edson Drive. So we know there's a lot of traffic and there's a lot of pedestrians. It's really a preventative measure to take. Some of the pedestrian collisions that have happened in our community, a lot of them are at stop signs. Do I see us putting these at stop signs? Probably not, because people should be stopping regardless of those. But we do take that into consideration.
And one follow-up. One follow-up.
Oh, how can I ruin on the dip on 6th Avenue, do you know what I'm talking about? Where the ravine is on 6th Avenue going toward the hospital? Because the town path goes right through there, their signs are very low, and I've seen in other towns where they have like a high reflective pole and then they have the crosswalking sign on top. Is there any thought to do something like that? Because as the cars come, I think they sort of hit and go into that dip, and it is a town trail that I would hate to see people hit there. And just those low sidewalk ones, I don't think are very visual for drivers.
We can do an evaluation on increasing the size of those markers for sure.
Thank you, I got it in one question.
Councillor Meyer.
Through the chair to administration, what is the current value in our Public Safety Initiative Reserve, and do we have anything else planned to be earmarked for that besides these pedestrian crosswalks?
The current reserve, and my finance lady can correct me if I'm wrong, is about 105,000 ballpark. This project will obviously come out of that reserve. Any other projects that are earmarked, not at this stage, but that's the fund that's created there for any type of initiatives. Last year, for example, we did the 72-hour emergency kits. It gives us that ability to look at some really public safety projects moving forward. We felt for 2020 our project was going to be focused on these later crosswalks.
All right, Councillor Curry and then Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair, just at the COW meeting we had discussed about the possibility of could any of them go on the highway and then be moved once we had the lights. Did you do research on that for us?
Through the chair to Councillor Curry, we have had discussions with Alberta Transportation. They have outlined a process, and they're a part of that process to do an evaluation on those intersections. So for us to get it approved, even if we're willing to fund it ourselves, they still have to approve their processes, which is do an evaluation for the pedestrian traffic. They're very similar to what they do for traffic flows, but it's a pedestrian flow to allow us to approve it for us. We are working with them at this stage, and I am getting told that hopefully that study for the intersection we've talked about will be conducted this spring, summer.
Then one follow-up.
Different question.
Go ahead.
Okay, just looking at the sites, and just knowing because we're planning on rolling these out, having the 2 that are both on Edson Drive versus a different location, and just, I know our mayor for the day had a location, and that was the mayor for the day who had won. Have we had any consideration about that location, or any other locations, just knowing that both those Edson Drives are fairly close to each other? and would one on Edson Drive that close together be able to slow the traffic enough? Just knowing they're expensive.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of the location you're referring to, unfortunately.
It hasn't come to council yet, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we identified those two locations in Edson Drive. One is a major trail crossing by 48th Street. And the other one is it's a crosswalk, which we're having a lot of students cross here, heading over to Holy Redeemer, Parkland, and Pine Groves, because that whole Tiffin area, all the student traffic are really funneling down through that crosswalk. That's where we identified those two sites.
Thank you, Mr. Schramm. Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to Mr. Schramm, I'd have to disagree with you. I don't believe 16th Avenue and Edson Drive is strongly encouraged at the last committee meeting, but I am in support of it. I do know that committee, we really emphasized a number of other locations that aren't on this list today. So is it not possible for us to discuss a policy or a motion that incorporates all of them over a multi-year span, or do you need approval each year for next year's crosswalks?
I'll take that one. Through to Councillor Sorensen, we are free to make as a councillor, anybody around this table can make a motion to put forward a plan for future years or additional crossings this year. And I'll make some comments on that a little bit.
Should I follow up on that?
Yeah.
Because I believe we had general agreement to attack all of those priority issues that you raised last time, and in my opinion, the agreement was over multiple years. And so I would support the motion if someone made it to tackle all of those priority areas that were raised at the committee meeting.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Sorensen. Our goal was to address all those, but do it over a multi-year project, like 3 this year, potentially 2 or 3 next year. And then as we move through this project, there may be other sites that come up that grab our attention. Once the public sees the effectiveness, they may come to us, and then we can evaluate the validity of those sites as well. So we do see it as a multi-year project, an ongoing project. Some of these sites may lose their effectiveness, and then we have to relocate them to a more very useful site. So that is our goal.
Okay. Councillor Curry.
Through the chair, just how easy, are they fairly easy to move?
Through the chair, relatively. They are mounted on pedestals, very similar to the ones that are located at the schools, other than these are a little different design. Are they easy to move? I would say not necessarily, but they are movable.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'm going to make some comments. I made mention at the last committee meeting that I think we should be getting all these done this year that were on the list, and I think we have money in our energy reserve that we don't really have any projects allocated yet. Instead of completely draining the public safety initiative, that we could look at utilizing some of those funds. I certainly would be in support in doing more, particularly at the hospital location. Would be one, and if there are the other locations too, probably not as a high priority. Those could be in future years, but I certainly be willing to support something like that if anybody around the table wants to put forward a motion. So, CEO Derrick.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think just to add to Mr. Schramm's comments as well, I think that there is some value in starting with 3 locations. It also allows us to completely evaluate cost, effectiveness, feedback from both pedestrians and motorists, just to ensure that we are building a program that has the best, most practical impact. We're obviously not restricted specifically by timelines. Even if we made it through to the end of summer and we were so inclined to proceed, we can always come back and ask for additional funds. I do think in this case it would be prudent to start with a select number of locations and learn from that process so that we can then proceed in the most efficient and productive manner possible. That was one of the reasons why we only recommended 3 sites at this point in time.
All right, thank you. Councillor Short.
Just one question, I think you answered. These are solar powered, correct?
That's correct.
So with the comments I'm hearing, I would have to agree with our CAO that we could start with 3, and then once we determine cost and how they work, we would, being solar powered, we can almost install them at any time of the year because it's just a concrete weight in the ground. So I would have to agree with that comment. Start with 3, it's good. I'm not against doing them all, right now, but I go with 3 and then we can see how they work. And because there's what, 3 or 4 other sites in total?
Yeah, at least 3 or 4 other
Yeah.
additional sites.
So I would be in favor of doing it that way. That makes sense to me. Then we have time to evaluate the cost, how they're working, and then not just bringing them all at once to discover we did something wrong.
All right, any other comments, questions, or concerns? Just reiterate, I would support also doing the hospital location this year if somebody wants to make that motion. If not, then we'll continue on. Councillor Byer.
Through the chair to Councillor Chenard, is there an appetite to amend the motion and include the hospital location?
Sure, I'll do nothing against one more.
Okay, so we're gonna add
Or who wants to make the
Councillor
motion? Yes.
Councillor Curry. I was thinking we'd do a separate motion and
Okay, perfect.
just handle with these 3 and then do an additional motion following.
I would not be in support in adding the hospital location right now, because I think that something will be coming to council, with the possibility that would be adding a 5th one. If that comes to us and we're interested in that, and then I think that goes, like, I agree with, what the CAO has said, that I would like to see the effectiveness and, how it is working. And if that one does come forth, that would be another 4, and then all of a sudden we're at 5. So I would be more comfortable with just keeping with the 3 for now, knowing that we might have a 4th coming up in the next little bit.
All right. Councillor Wilkinson.
To the chair, I'm comfortable with this the way it is.
Okay.
We can always get bigger.
All right. I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Clear as mud? All right, can I get a motion, please, that council appoint CEO Mike Derricott as the Director of Emergency Management? Councillor Wilkinson will make that motion, and Mr. Schramm is here to take us through this.
Yeah, at the January 21st council meeting, council gave 3 readings to the emergency management bylaw. Within that bylaw, council has the responsibility to appoint the Director of Emergency Management. And that hence is why Mr. Derricott is being selected. He's our current DEM. Just to meet the requirements of that bylaw, though, we have to have an official appointment and resolution from the council.
All right, any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council adopt the revised council remuneration policy as presented, with the initial wage increase being done incrementally between now and 2022, as noted in the memo? Councillor Sorensen will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
No, sorry. I would like to make an alternate motion. Exactly
Okay.
as written here in the agenda, but with an addition at the end of it that says the base, I believe it's called the base honorarium table, is moved to an appendix. That, I'll speak to that in a second.
So you want the motion as outlined in the memo with
the base level honorarium table moved to an appendix.
to an appendix, okay? And would you like to speak to that?
I would.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In my opinion, policy should be more or less timeless and shouldn't have specific dates and specific starting points. If we move this table to an appendix, this policy could go on for 15, 20 years without any revisions, or just makes it, in my opinion, a better policy. I'm in full support of the numbers and the recommendation from administration.
All right, Councillor Chenard.
It's been such a long time, and I was trying to get it in. I would like to ask for a recorded vote, and I will be speaking against this.
Okay. Would you like to speak against it?
Yes, I would like to speak against it. Secondly, the reason I'm not in favor, this will be the second raise that we gave ourselves in this term. We are asking all departments to hold the line, and even though it's not a large amount of money, this is my personal feeling, that's why I'm speaking against it. I don't feel comfortable giving ourselves a raise when we're asking everyone else to take cutbacks. Like, we're telling people, hold the line, cut your costs, and yet I don't feel comfortable voting myself a raise.
All right, any other comments, questions, concerns? Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, I'd also like to let it be known that I can't support this either. When other public service groups are getting 0 at this time, I absolutely cannot support it while I'm still in the office, knowing what I was getting when I went to work I can't expect a raise during the time I'm in.
All right, Councillor Bevan?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I can't support it. I know some other people here right now, they're friends of mine, that just got laid off here. And it looks like another company's gonna be laying some more people off here and that. And I've gotten numerous calls and comments on this about why are we giving ourselves a raise when everybody else is either staying the same or getting cutbacks, or having to take, a lot of the companies now are getting a Friday off now, Golden Friday, they're calling it, they're getting a Friday off, so they're getting a long weekend here, so I just can't support this.
All right, Councillor Barr?
Through the chair to council, I support Councillor Sorensen's amended motion to the policy, as well as I support the motion as it is, and the reasons being is because I truly believe that we need to encourage people to run for office, and this raise financially isn't, it's not huge dollars, but nonetheless we need to strongly encourage people to run for office. And when our mayor is the lowest paid mayor in out of 12 different communities of similar size to ours, and our previous elections have shown that very few people are desired to even run for the position, and same thing with our local council, and to encourage a diverse group of people when we have various schedules that sometimes are in the evening, sometimes are the daytime, sometimes are the weekends. As a parent with young children, there's also additional tasks with childcare, trying to take in time with that flexible schedule of this position. And if we want to encourage people to run in the future, I think that we need to make that something that they're not unable to do it because it doesn't provide the financial support that flexibility requires.
All right. Councillor Curry?
I'm also in support of the motion as is, and I like the moving the scale out so that the policy stays. And also because we did the data, and that's what we did, and the reasoning for it, and we're not even at a comparable. This isn't talking about being competitive, this is talking about being comparable. And I would like to clarify, we did not give ourselves a raise. There was a massive change to the tax way that we are done, and so our income stayed the exact same. So we used to get 30% tax relief, which the federal government changed. So when we say we gave an increase, we didn't give ourselves a raise, we gave ourselves the exact same cost to pay, just the differences in taxes. So it's not fair to say that that was a raise, because it wasn't, because we no longer get that 30% relief. So it was just an equalizing, not an increase.
All right, Councillor Chouinard?
Just to respond, and I also have another comment, no, sure now. I guess my terminology, we did vote ourselves a raise. Whatever the reason is, it was a raise. And then my net,
it was not a
We own the
raise.
same amount.
well.
We take home the same amount.
Okay, and then the other question is, if passed by council, I don't know if this is the right time to, are we allowed to reject the raise? Or is it for, it's like what I'm saying, if this is passed by council, am I allowed to say, yes, you vote a raise, I don't want it, and leave it with the taxpayer? That's a
Through
question I
to
have.
Councillor Chouinard, no, this is policy. Now you can make a check and donate it back to the municipality if you so wish. I believe the municipality can take donations.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I agree with the mayor's assessment there. We would be obligated administratively to process councillors' remuneration as per the policy. If you chose to donate any portion of that personally or privately, that would be your prerogative.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair, I believe everyone knows my thoughts on this. I've spoken multiple times on it, but I am uncomfortable living in a community where only wealthy individuals with secure income streams can run for office. And I believe that everyone in town, and everyone in our community should be able to run for office and know that their valuable time will be reimbursed at an average rate. And nothing unreasonable, but I think this policy reflects that. And we paid a consultant to give us guidance. He did. I believe it's our responsibility to move forward. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Bevan?
Yeah, I guess I kind of have to disagree with the chair is that I've heard a couple of times now not only in this meeting, other meetings, that it will get more people out that want to run for our council and that. So which means it tells me that they are looking at the money. It's my second term. When I ran the first time, I did not even look at the money in that or whatever it was going to be. I didn't run earlier because my job would not let me, because I couldn't make it here for only probably 2 meetings a month in that. And just to say that we're in the middle of the pack or the bottom of the pack, when I hear that it's going to get more people to turn out that want to sit here, then it does become about money. I'm sorry, it does. And we have a lot of daycares in here that have subsidy and everything else. You can do that with the kids or whatever and that. And if you're just going to run because you're going to get an extra $25,000, $30,000 a year, and you're looking at the money, it becomes about money for the people that want to run for it, to me, which is totally 100% wrong. You should run for council because you want to support your town, you want to do the best job you can for the town and for your residents, and make decisions in that, and you don't look at what the money is. At least that's the way I've looked at it before, and I've always looked at it. So I would run if we didn't even get anything, to tell you the truth, than that. And if we just got our per diems and stuff like that, and we got no salary, we got everything else paid, we don't miss out on anything at all. We don't lose any money except for what we pay out of our own pockets to buy whatever we want to buy, so.
All right. Councillor Byer.
Open the door.
Through the chair to council and Councillor Bevan. I don't know if this would encourage more people to run for office in our town, but by not compensating us fairly for our time, and if we have to take time off without pay, not everybody gets vacation time at the table here, and if you have to take time off without pay to attend your meetings, then this is a salary that helps compensate for that, in addition to the extremely flexible schedule that being in office requires.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair, I have to disagree with Councillor Bevan. I know a lot of people in this community that would like to run for office but can't afford to spend their evenings, weekends, and even daytime meetings coming to this because they would lose money from work. And so I think that anyone in this community should be able to run for office and have their time reimbursed at an average rate, like I said. And it's not, I myself also would volunteer for this position. I love being on council, but I know there's people in our community that would like to be on in this chair that just can't afford it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I beat it to death.
Yes, we have beat this to death. I'll just leave some final comments here. I think we have got the market data and the information that I think shows that we are being responsible on how we're dealing with this. I have to say I'm deeply disappointed with council tonight because at our committee meeting 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I thought that we had general consensus, -1, on how we were going to proceed with this. I know it has changed a little bit because of the benefits question, but we are implementing this over 3 years. But I am disappointed because I think we had an agreement and had a really good and robust discussion about it. And now I see people changing their position on it. I echo the comments that we don't want to have people running just because of the money, but people's time is valuable, and if you're taking time away from work and family, it should be compensated in a fair way. And we are only going to be comparable, not even competitive, and that's not until 2022 because we are doing a 3-year phase-in on this. Which amounts, I believe, to around $70 a month for council, which I think we're being a little overreactionary when we're looking at the actual numbers. And I think this is a much fairer way of dealing with it than a one huge increase this year for future years. So with that, I'll call the question. We do have a recorded vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Now I lost my spot.
Council reports.
We have no information items, no sundry items, council committee reports. We're going back to January 22nd. And we will start with Councillor Byer.
On January 22nd, I attended the Homelessness Task Force meeting, and we seem to have made some progress there, so that was pleasing. January 28th was our committee of the whole meeting. January 31st, I attended the downtown revitalization strategy session here. February 3rd, I had the youth council meeting, and February 5th, I had a library board building committee meeting.
All right, Councillor Sorensen.
All right, thank you. January 28th, the Committee of the Whole meeting. January 29th, I was at the West Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority. It was a pivotal meeting in my opinion. We hadn't met for over 6 months, and there were some very frustrated elected officials in the room. We decided to move in a new direction with an executive officer helping us out. We've had the budget for that position for a number of years, but we hadn't filled it. So now we're actually going to post that position and fill it. We need a manager working between meetings on, we have a lot of strategic items that need to be addressed, and we need to move forward. So we will be hiring a position for that as well. Each community usually brings an administrative person to the meeting. And we found that in the past, sometimes that's a little distracting, having so many opinions in the room when most of them are not elected, so they're not decision making. So we're going to have one administrative person in the room that's responsible for the entire technical advisory group. That way we can give him tasks, and if the tasks aren't done, we have one person held accountable. So we're hoping we'll make progress now. January 31st, I was at the Downtown Revitalization Strategy Session. February 3rd, I was at Youth Council. And a couple days later, on February 6th, we went on our facility tour with Youth Council. That was, I'm sure it was an eye-opener to them to see then the scope of our facilities and the amount of work it takes to keep our town running on a day-to-day basis. February 7th, I went to the RMRF Law Seminar in Edmonton. Learned a really good session on tax incentives, the new provincial tax incentive program. And I did take quite a bit of notes I'll share with Council. February 10th, I was at the Edson District Recycling Society contract negotiations. That is looking promising. And February 12th, I was at a chamber meeting, a Chamber of Edson, or Edson and District Chamber meeting, and MLA Martin Long presented. He, as people can see on the internet, he's receiving a lot of stress right now with Yellowhead, the state of the pavement on Yellowhead. And so he expressed his frustration with Leadcore, and then the entire room let Martin know that they're frustrated as well. So he had a rough meeting, and I felt for him, but that's what he signed up for. Thank you very much.
All right, Councillor Wilkinson.
All right, on the 22nd of January, I went to the homelessness task force as well. On the 23rd, I had an Evergreens meeting, and we did a walk around, and the board came to walk around Evergreen and the Yellowhead County Mayor. At that time, the team had unveiled drawings to us of the conceptual design of the building. That was at our board meeting that day, and we are going ahead with the build in Wildwood. So we'll be kept very busy. On the 29th, I also attended the West Yellowhead Regional Waste Management meeting with Councillor Sorensen, and met MDAD Haig, who will be the person that will be responsible for us. And it was very interesting with mattress recycling and the different constraints people have. On the 5th of February, we did a walkthrough at the old Parkdown Lodge again. We now have new drywallers. The original firm haven't worked out, and they walked out. All the millwork on the 3rd floor is removed, and in the common rooms, it also was not up to standard. So it's all going to be replaced by a new company at no cost to Evergreens or to the government. It just did not meet the standards it needed to. February 6th, I went on the facility tour with Youth Council. That was really very interesting. On the 11th, we had a committee of the whole. On the 13th, I went to Emerging Trends with Brown Lee. They talked about the professional code of conduct, and I really enjoyed the lawyer talking about how you deal with people coming from environmental inspection or whatever, and you need to ask, is this an inspection or an investigation? he talked about disgruntled employees, as quite often when they leave, they'll lodge a complaint, even though something's gone on for 10 years, but they lodge a complaint. So I think we really need to be aware of how we need to answer to people when they come. But I found that an interesting session, so thank you.
Councillor Chenard.
Okay, January 28th was a committee of the whole. January 31st, downtown revitalization. And on February 5th and 7th, I attended our Yellowhead Highway Association. On the 5th, we were discussing lobbying. We need the power of other groups. On February 7th, no surprise, we discussed the shape of Highway 16 and what we can do, and I'll share with Council a letter or respond from Transportation Minister. The other thing is there will be an invite. It's April 24th is our AGM, and we invite everyone as well to attend it. We are sent out invitations to get the federal transportation minister there, get the Alberta one, and possibly all the ministers from the 4 provinces because it's their 50th anniversary. So when I do get the replies, I will forward it to council. And then February 13th, also 10 emerging trend. Where I found very interesting was the code of conduct. I applaud council. I questioned it. Why is this so hype? And he said it's brand new. So I listened to what they were doing. We're on the right track, but it was a very interesting session. It was an hour and a half long, and the do's and don'ts. We're on the right path, but we do need some tweaking. And they said they could send us information. Later that day, I attended the Synergy meeting, and it was on the pine beetle. And then they shared with us information. We're talking about where farmers are not being paid fairly, and they were sent a letter out encouraging everyone to safely go onto the sites and turn off the power and gas. And then they went on to saying, no, please don't do that, because people are doing it and realizing the danger. You just can't play with these. So there was a whole seminar on that. And then update as well as mine, the busiest of Edson. So we had representation from Hinton. Hinton as well said, there with the activity in the area, the hotels are all full. It's great for the economy. They didn't have numbers in front of us, and they said don't quote them for sure because the representative was there, but we're carrying on the same trend as reported last time of the spending in our community. It was all great. I think I'm missing one, but February 11th was the Cal meeting, and I'm missing some, but that's it for my report.
Councillor Curry.
On January 30th, I had the Edson Historical Society meeting, and just a couple things I wanted to share with you guys. First of all, they're crazy busy, so lots of appreciation out to them. In the month of December, I think there was 5 days that they didn't have rentals, including that was through the Christmas break. I know that our manager came in on her holidays to allow some, including a New Year's wedding and such, which is great. But something that they did that was really cool, just for all the nonprofits, we were, somebody from Robertson College Online contacted Sherry about doing their practicum, a student that wanted to do a practicum to redo the website. And so it was for, I want to make sure I get the hours right, 160 hours was the practicum she had to do. So she came to the museum and she completely redid the website and went through the entire material, went through everything for free. It was, and so I specifically asked her if there was other students, and this isn't the first time that Sherry's been contacted, and this lady actually is local, so it's great because she also loves the museum now and wants to volunteer and is in town and said she'd be willing to help out, but it is something for any of the nonprofits. So they do all different types of, hers is a practicum and career services coordination, and so we are getting our website for free, which is pretty amazing for a nonprofit. January 31st, I had the downtown revitalization. January 10th, I had the February 10th, I won't go backwards. I had the Recycling Society Negotiation Committee meeting, and I would echo what Councillor Sorensen said. I think it's going really well, and we're coming to a closing, I think. Of February 11th, the cow, and then February 13th, I had the Edson Recycling Society meeting. and just some really neat things that they did say. We've switched to the Goodwill, taking everything from the take it or leave it. I think it'd be a really amazing opportunity next time to go if there was 1 or 2 youth counselors that wanted to go. They have, so they upcycle everything. They upcycle absolutely everything, and the way it is, even if furniture comes in and it's in rough shape, they have people that fix up the furniture, and so even to the point of like teddy bears that have gone for too long, then they pull out the stuffing and they build it into. So she just said it was an amazing system to see, and I think for the youth council that are really involved in that, that it might be a great tour. The architectural clearing, as you guys know, is fully on. It is going great. It did cost them $4,000 in cameras and a horn and everything because within the first 3 nights it was broken into. And the biggest issue was that they were taking things. It's not taking things. That's not the biggest issue. It was that they were throwing them over the fence onto CNN Rail, which is not great. So that they put a horn. And 3 nights in a row at 1:30 with the horn going on, it hasn't gone off for 4 nights. So hopefully the horn is working. And they are still doing monthly contact with the schools to see how things are going. And so far the schools are doing really, really great. They are waiting, and they will be coming up with a financial plan if the contract is not signed in the next few weeks to come to an emergency plan. Huge event to keep in your calendars, May 30th. They're doing a big event for bees and which will be involving all the schools. And that is it for them.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bevan?
Okay, here 23rd, I had an RSC teleconference meeting, went well. We had a call meeting on 28th, 31st with downtown revitalization. And on the 12th of February, we had a meeting with the Edson Senior Transportation Society, where Guy and Tanya did attend and had a good conversation with the senior transportation. It went fairly well in that. I think that both sides learned what the other side was doing and kind of missing out in that. There was lots of questions being asked on their side in that. We asked some questions ourselves. The survey will be put out coming shortly here from that department on what our transportation service looks like and if we're missing anything, if we can fill in any gaps and stuff like this and that. So Tanya is putting a survey together and she's going to send it over to the board over there, and they can have their input on what they would like to see or what they would like to take out in that. It's just kind of a miscommunication over the years and between us and the Seniors Transportation Society. So I think they have a better idea of what we expect from them and what they expect from us, sort of deal in that. So I think it's going to hopefully go better next time in that. Their raffle tickets for Lucky the Irish are just about sold out. Trivia night is March 14th at the Legion at 5 o'clock. It's been booked. They do have an MC and stuff like that. They are going to be attending the Heartbeat of Edson Volunteer Appreciation Night. Their AGM is on March 25th, and the accident bill that they had when their bus got hit, the lady that was injured could not afford to pay it, so they paid it out for her through the senior transportation and that. And I guess the biggest thing that they're going through is they're just like any other group we have in town. They are struggling to get support, to get volunteers. It's usually the same 4 or 5 people that are there all the time, and they're getting burned out in that. So they need, like anybody else, they need more support, more people to volunteer. But they're finding that it's hard to get them, and it's hard to get a bus driver because there's not a lot of people out there that can drive the bus. Summertime is okay because the school division is not running the buses. They do get some of the school drivers come over and we'll pick up the slack here and there. But once school's back in, then these people are going back and driving their own buses and that. So they are struggling to get volunteers in that. I think that's one of the biggest things in that. So I think with Guy and that, I think it went well as it could be. So deal on that. A few bumps in the road, but I think we can get this lined out and that. And I think they'll. I did offer to see if they have anything to come back to council here do a presentation on everything they got, and any questions, please come and join us at the table here and discuss it. So hopefully they take up the offer and have to come back. So,
All right.
and that is it.
All right, thank you. January 22nd, Homelessness Task Force meeting. There will be a Homelessness Task Force count coming up. We've actually had quite a few people step up to volunteer for that, so there's going to be some training, and we'll have some firmer numbers in terms of what the actual homelessness population in Edson is, using criteria that has been used for other communities, which is accepted by the governments. From there, drove to Edmonton. CEO Darricott and I attended the AUMA President's Summit on Municipal Finances. The evening session was basically an airing of grievances about the provincial government and how they treat us. It was very lively discussion. And then on the 23rd, they had different panels talking about different issues and different things that communities are doing in order to reduce costs, whether that's collaborating with regional governments. We sat with a gentleman from Grand Prairie, and they're actually automating some of their parks maintenance with automated mowers and that sort of thing. So they're doing some of that. So there's some more tech being used. Grand Prairie did a whole bunch of cuts. They're one of the highest taxed communities in all of Alberta, so they've had to cut back significantly. Mayor Don Iveson was given some grief about the state of the roads in Edmonton and the snow removal. So I think he was going to cancel his AUA membership. I'm not sure, but it was a really good discussion. I know that administration's working on some of the ideas that were brought forward on that. 28th, we had committee of the whole, downtown revitalization on the 31st. Youth Council on February 3rd. Youth Council facility tour on the 6th. I think they really enjoyed that. They actually got to Edson RCMP Identification Services was working that day, so they got to go see the ident lab, and a lot of the youth counselors are really interested in science, so I think they really enjoyed that part of it. We did have to cut the tour a little short at the wastewater treatment plant. I won't say, but Councillor Sorensen and I had to push somebody out of a snowbank. I won't mention any names, but it was a good tour, and I think the youth really enjoyed that. February 10th, we had our EDRS contract negotiations, and that'll be wrapping up soon. Cal on the 11th, and then emerging tech trends on the 13th. And I have to agree with both what Councillor Chouinard and Wilkinson said. There was some really good information in terms of environmental enforcement, ensuring that if you are dealing with an investigation, that you only have one spokesperson dealing with that investigating officer. Make sure that we have records. If there's any records that are taken, that you get receipts for those records. So you know exactly what's been taken and that sort of thing. There was a topic about public hearings, which I thought was very good. Talked about if you are having a public hearing on an issue, you should not be meeting with interested parties privately. Do not accept information after public hearing, as it would be unfair to other parties that might be interested in that issue. Everything goes on record, so make sure any comments, anything that's done is at the public hearing, and you want to build a record just in case there is somebody that wants to take it to court, so that decision to court. And you have to approach every decision the same way, so make sure you're not doing things differently, and I think we're very good at ensuring that we're not doing that. There was a question and answer period at the end, a question about GST being charged on projects between local governments. We've seen some cases where CRA has gone after bodies because there was a transfer of funds and they want to charge GST on it. According to the Brownlee lawyers, they cannot charge GST if it's a grant formula and there's a transfer of funds, but they can charge GST if it's for a product or a service. So make sure you have your agreements set out perfectly on that. They said it's very odd that this has come up all of a sudden because that's never been an issue until the last year. So just the federal government trying to take more money away from taxpayers. And then that's my report. Go ahead.
Can I just talk to Councillor Curry just for clarification? Did you say there was anything to Goodwill?
The take it or leave it. So everything at the take it or leave it is stickered. So if you're ever in there, you'll see that it has stickers, and that's the amount of time. So once it's been here for 3 months and nobody in the community has taken it, then they take it to Goodwill in the city. And they used to do. It wasn't Salvation Army, but
Yeah, it wasn't.
was it Salvation Army?
Yeah.
It was one of the other. They don't do because they don't recycle. So they found out that it was landfilled, and Goodwill has I think like everything is recycled. They have one of the best recycling.
But it's like private industry now, where the CIO gets 2.3 million a year, and 1/8 of their profits actually go to charity. Like, I love recycled things, and I wouldn't touch Goodwill in this day and age at all. They really made it into a for-profit thing.
Well, I think Salvation Army's worse.
I don't think so, but whatever.
Uh,
We'll make that decision.
Councillor Chenard?
I'm just gonna add one thing to your environment that he was saying. Make sure when you send a sample, you keep a sample of it, because that's the most common thing lost was the sample. So that was just the one thing stuck in my mind.
Yeah. And you're always, I think another thing is you're always allowed to have legal counsel present. They have to give you due time to do that. They sometimes like to say, no, I'm here now, you have to, no, you can have legal counsel, and they have to wait. So, all right, we will go to questions from media and public regarding items from this council meeting.
I just have the one. So now that the pedestrian crosswalk lights are approved by council, is there an approximate timeline of when they'll be installed?
I'll hand that over to Director Schramm.
Yeah, to the chair of the media. Basically, the next process, now we'll follow our purchasing policy. We'll develop an RFP, put that out very shortly, and with some timeframes to see with the suppliers. Typically, we're looking at a springtime, early summer installation. Hopefully, the process out of the ground will just make the installation so much easier.
Okay, that was all.
All right, thank you. No other questions? We will take a motion now that council move into a closed session in accordance with section 21(1)(b) of the FOIP Act, Intergovernmental Communications. Councillor Byer, all those in favor? Motion carried. For adjournment, Councillor Chenard, or sorry, you ready, Steve?
Yep.
Okay.
I was watching Steve.
All those favor?
Okay.
Motion carried.
I watched Steve.